just record it on my computer and then I'll upload it later on when we can figure things out, because this is take, I don't know, 7 maybe today.
Yep.
But we are dedicated. This magical cartographer group is so dedicated to making sure that you see this conversation that we're going to just keep pushing through no matter what the universe throws at us today. Why? Because we are showing our pride, right, ladies?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yes. So, okay, Becca's coming back in. Come on back in, Becca. Even though I see you already here, I don't know what's happening. But again, we're just going to keep rolling with whatever is happening today because we're living out loud. And apparently the universe is too. So welcome again to the Magical Cartographers. Today we are talking about showing our pride and living out loud. So this is Pride Month, and beyond just all of us being LGBTQ plus A for allies in this group, we are also badass women who push through whatever challenges the universe wants to throw our way to make shit happen. And we should really be proud about that. And we should live out loud about that every single day. The challenge comes in, and this is where we're going to start our conversation today, is the challenge comes in with there's a lot of shit from the patriarchy that we need to just burn down and release and let go of and unlearn and all those words, so that we can really start to live more authentically. And so I thought that cute twist would be like, let's make sure that we are cleaning out our closets, for Pride Month. So I know. The best I can do right now, on take 27. So we have some new faces today. Well, really just one new face, since Chanel's not technically showing us her face right now. But I'm so thankful that Becca, you just rolled with us and continued coming in. And I want folks to know we're recording this today because we're having some technical difficulties, but in the future, you're always welcome to join us right here while we're doing our lives. You're welcome to join us in Zoom. We love to see new faces. So that's always an option for you down the road. So let's see. Where should we start?
I know where
please.
I want to
Yes,
start.
Ish, please. Please. Let me stop talking now. I feel like I've been talking for like 20 minutes and we haven't said shit yet.
No,
please.
So where I wanted to start was just honoring where Pride Month came from, how this has all come about, taking a moment really for the history of the incredible amount of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just heartbreaking to me that in order to love the people you want to love and be who you want to be is incredibly hard in this country and in any part of the world. So in India, it's also, very hard. There are parts of the world that have not even come along to the point that this country has, and we've still got a lot of work to do. But Mel, I would love for you to start off and tell people, because my understanding, and I don't know if it's correct or not, because a lot of my history is not correct in what I learned in school, is that Pride started basically around the movement itself. The reason that this month came into being, June 28th, 1969, Stonewall. Can you talk, is that number one, is that true? But can you talk to us about what happened around then and how this movement really came about, move forward, that we have a month that we can really honor people and who they are and say we need to love who we love?
Yeah, I mean, without giving kind of the full history lesson on it, yeah, absolutely. Stonewall really was, and Stonewall, was a particular neighborhood, right? And so within this neighborhood, there were let me back up. For years, people who have been othered especially folks in the LGBT community, being able to be out, to be open, to live out loud wasn't an option. And there have always, throughout history, there have always been pockets of people in, places all over the world who, find each other and find a way to live their lives the best way that they can. And that, happened, right there in this community where, um, and I won't even go into the whole controversy of, the trans community and how, they have not been embraced nearly as much as I believe they should be within the big LGBTQIA, all the letters, alphabet umbrella. But Stonewall really was an example of, especially the transgender community, um, standing up for themselves, right? It had come a point in time in this neighborhood, especially in this, local bar, where the cops would continuously like come in, harass the patrons, harass people who were showing up. And again, people just like living their lives, right? They've already like separated themselves and found this little pocket for themselves. And yet there was this continuous pressure from the police that like no space was safe space. And on this particular day, um, you know, these girls fought back, right? I mean, it wasn't just girls, but um, this group of, especially trans folks, decided like enough's enough, fuck this, right? You want to fight, we're not going to just move, we're not just going to cow down anymore. At some point it's got to stop, right? And this is so emblematic of everything in this country. And every time there needs to be change, every time change happens, I should say, it starts with this pressure that just boils over, right? And so these, who now we see as icons in the community, were like, enough's enough, we're standing up. If they put their bodies literally in the way, in protest. And from that, other people were inspired. That's really the beginning of how this movement swelled, was because it took folks putting their bodies on the line, right? They were also, amazing people of color, but they put their bodies on the line in between themselves and, oppression, right? So that other people didn't have to. And of course, that people were so inspired and were like, yes, fuck it, we're not doing this anymore. And that was really the kind of the groundswell, for this movement of living out loud, right? Of saying no more. We're not going to be pushed into the corners and turned away and just treated like shit just because we're living our lives and not harming anyone else. We have to do something different. And this notion now of June being, National Pride Month, it is an opportunity, yes, absolutely, to understand where this movement started from. And, most importantly, understand that, again, it wasn't just about parades. It wasn't just about, yay, rainbows, right? Like, yes, I'm fully embracing all of the rainbows. And I'm going to put my rainbow back up in a minute and hopefully it doesn't crash everything we're doing. But but it really is, just as our topic suggests, it really takes for those of us who are brave enough to do whatever we have to and put ourselves on the line and say enough's enough. These things need to be said. These things need to be done. Somebody's got to make that change, right? And why not? Why not me? Why not us, in those moments? And so, Pride and celebrating Pride each month, grew from that. It is a celebration. Um, Beyond looking at our history, remembering what has happened, but also finding opportunities to learn about what's currently happening, right, across the country, what's happening in, your neighborhoods, ways that you can learn more about how you can help the LGBTQ community, bring voice to people. And so, for me, this is going to be super cheesy. Like, it fills me with pride to think about the fact that, um, this is a whole month of people again recognizing that they have to just, like, screw it, live out loud. Like, here I am, look at me, right? I don't care what you think, I'm living my life, and the inspiration that comes from that, right?
Yeah,
And that goes
because
back
to
to
not,
Ish.
yeah, to not live your life is, there's so much to that about when you're not able to live as who you are. There's so many, it's to speak to that patriarchy. It's a way of separating, it's a way of dominating, saying you, like, because I know people, like, well, they don't understand it. So, like, it's like going to harm my way of life. It's not harming anybody. Nobody's harming anybody. We've done so much harm to people by being different,
Yeah.
right? And the reason I wanted to start there is because there's past, present, and future, right? And I sort of love how you put that about, like, it's also an opportunity. The month is an opportunity to know and to really talk about what's going on right now, where we're headed in the future. But the past is so important because what our ancestors, what has happened, and maybe I've just seen a couple of things this week. So I just, it's really weird. I just started watching Downton Abbey. I'm going to call it Downtown Abbey because I'm like so arrogant. But but in the very first episode, there is Thomas who is in a relationship with the Lord and is being used, but like I already know because of the time that it's set in that he's not going to be able to. I already know he's not going to be able to be who he is.
Right.
And then I also have started watching the Chronicles of Shannara. I feel like I'm
You're on quite the roller coaster right now, in time and space. Okay. I love it.
Most, like all sorts of bad stuff has happened, and there's like gnomes and but the one of the women in there, very very from the beginning, is like she's bisexual. She's likes boys and girls, and the boy that she liked, that didn't really work out. But when you kind of come back in season 2, she's with a woman, and
spoiler alert.
Yeah, and she made actually a pass at a woman. Was like made a. So when I say made a pass, and what I'll say is that those two shows in the very different time periods. Of course, we haven't. I hope that the world doesn't fall apart like that. And it's like crazy. But the thing is what that showed. She approached a woman, and it wasn't like, as opposed to in Downton Abbey, it was like, why would somebody of the same sex approach me? This other person was just like, I'm not, that's not who I am. It's like, okay, that there's a lot more normalization, which is a good thing in the midst of still having a lot of work to do. And I think for me, it was really, because I didn't know anything about June 28th and I know about Pride Month. I didn't know where it came from. And so, because I need to honor Mel because she'll kick my ass if I don't.
But in a loving way. Such a loving way.
Well, but that's the thing. That's a part about being a part of a group. It's like, if you like, I don't know a whole lot, and this is like my opportunity to learn. But I really felt it was important to have that. It's not just all about parties. I'm so grateful that people are able to live out loud in a very different way than before. But just to be able to take a moment to honor all of the folks who weren't able to, and the folks who fought to be able to, at least at this point, live, be able to be open.
Yeah.
Although it's still not safe.
It's not. I mean, it's still not safe for everyone to be able to do that. And I think, part of the learning that people can do this month, specifically around LGBTQ and ways to help and help advocate, is to recognize that regardless of how far it looks like we've come, there's still a lot of work to be done. And that, just as we talk about, Black Lives Matter, And, people like, but don't all lives matter? Yeah, duh, all lives matter, right? But you don't get to say that until Black Lives Matter, right? When I worked, around marriage equality, right? And people would, say, well, like, what difference does it make? You can have this other thing, these civil unions. No, it is a civil right. Something like marriage, when we talk about equality, equality means for everyone, right? Not whatever categories someone wants to, create or niche out. So, it's just so important to understand that in all of these areas, it's never just one thing. And there are always ways that if you want to be an advocate, if you're gonna call yourself an ally, right, that means more than I'm okay with gay people, right? It means that, and that's great. I mean, if that's as far as you can come, that's okay, right? But if you're going to call yourself an ally, that means that, you are also speaking about these issues, right? That you are showing up, and it isn't just like, oh yeah, I have a gay friend that I went to high school with, right? That it's more than that. And so yes, I so appreciate you, Ish, for starting us off, by putting me on the spot. Thank you. I love it. I'm happy
And
about
I'm
that.
going to say one other thing. I'm going to shut up because like other people need to talk. But I do want to make this comment about like when people say, what does it matter? Like, you can have these civil unions and that's no, it's not. So if you're ever in the position of loving somebody and they're hospitalized and cannot speak for themselves, and you have other people who prevent you, even though you've been with the person 10, 15, 20 years. So that's incredibly, that's
Yeah.
it's mind-blowing to me. So the marriage gives couples of whoever the couple is a sense of security and a level of right that you can't get. No, even if sometimes, and it's happened, even if somebody has done an advance directive, people will come in and change things all around the place. And so no, I'm 100% like that's not the answer. And I'm so glad that we do have marriage equality, although I am scared that there's going to be challenges to that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
The
I'm
fight's
scared.
still there.
I'm scared that people won't be able to vote soon. So it is. It's a lot. There are a lot of pieces to this crazy puzzle, and that really is, for me, that has always been my motivator to live out loud, to speak up where I could, and as safely as I could. I mean, I haven't been scared of too many things, but I recognize that's not everyone's experience. And because it's not, I have to speak up a little bit more, right? Um, and living out loud, living authentically, is, in my experience, has been the best motivation, to help people in changing, hearts and minds, as we used to say it, in the biz, right? And even as a mother, I think that showing up authentically, for your children and showing them, right? It's always better when let me show you better than I can show you better than I can tell you, right? Like if I show up authentically and my children see that, it's different than me saying like, you should be this kind of person, or you should be a great ally, but never show it, right? And so, for me, when we were talking about, having this conversation, and we're going to have a part two to this conversation, in 2 weeks, but it really has to start with, kind of this framework of the value, right, of living out loud, the value of recognizing the things that are not working or haven't worked historically, cleaning out our closets, if you will, um, and moving forward from there, right? Because there isn't a level playing field. And so I'd love to hear from you ladies, some of, I guess, some of the pieces that you're feeling, some of the pieces that need to get burned down, if you will, that need to be cleared out, things that maybe have come up, um, for you recently, or really bubbled to the surface of little agitators still in the water, right? That are starting to bubble up. The more you are living out loud, the more that you are being authentic. What are some of the things that are bubbling up for you, that we really need to burn away? I'd love to hear a bit more about that. I won't point fingers unless I have to, so feel free to jump in. You're gonna make me do it.
Are you going to say something, Jocelyn?
No,
go
you're
ahead. No,
already
go ahead,
you're already
Becca.
talking, Becca. You win.
I'm already talking. This is, I think it's a pretty like, I don't know, maybe everyday thing. It's not something that I've necessarily realized like very specifically. It's just, it's kind of one of those like headaches that just like doesn't quite go away, and you just get like used to it being there, and you adjust your life accordingly around it. And I think I say this because I'm coming from a place where I feel like I've been able to do like some deconditioning and really exploring so many things. So just recognizing that there have been so many times where whether I have tried to live out loud, or, and just whatever my truth is, or people around me. And so often people have these ideas of who you are, and they really try to keep you in that box.
Yeah.
And they don't allow for growth, or for, learning and the growth that comes from that to happen. And it's fascinating to me. This did happen recently with like an old acquaintance. We've known each other since like kindergarten or something. These are the perks of like being back in like a small town that you grew up in, And it was just so interesting because I felt like when we had like a moment of reconnection, of seeing each other, and having a short chat, it was very much like she was kind of telling me what I wanted to hear. And I was used to her doing that kind of thing, like to other people, maybe when we were growing up, but like not to me. And so it was interesting that she was kind of saying that to me, or acting that way towards me. And then she said something to my partner about like, oh, this is how she is with her mom, whatever. And I was kind of like, actually, that's not, it's been like 15 years maybe since, you witnessed this. And it was just really interesting kind of seeing, how like this box that she had for me. And so obviously like this is like a very, minute description of, people like living their truths, and there are so many other things that we can talk about here. This is like not a big thing, but it just made me think about the boxes that people will put you in, or that they want you to be in. And that is I think a huge thing with people living their truths and living out loud. And there are obviously plenty of people to this day in this country that they want people to fit in these boxes that they have, whether it's for that person specifically, or how they want people to be in society, or how they want society to be. And I think that that's like all fine and dandy, but people aren't, we're not square boxes.
Yeah.
We
got curves.
Yeah. We can't fit into these places. That's right. And so I think that, like I said, it's just kind of that like aching headache that people adjust their lives around. And that shit needs to go. It's got to get burned down, because no one should have to be living their life in a way that is dictated by anyone else. I have always felt like, hey, if you're not hurting anyone, do you. Like, there's no problem with it. If you're not hurting somebody else, do your thing. enjoy your life. That's what we're here for, right? Is to like make the world a better place and have a good time. So I think that's just it's something that frustrates me also, and that has been like, kind of like a frustrating pattern that I've noticed too. And it doesn't matter who it's with, whether it's friends or family or random people in society, that it's just the idea that like there's this cookie cutter thing, and we are not that.
Right. Yeah. And I'm going to stamp that one with patriarchy. And without going into too much detail, I'm going to let Jocelyn go ahead. But I'm going to get like a stamp, like patriarchy.
Yeah. Patriarchy and like colonialism,
Yes. Yes.
We need a stamp. Oh, that's an idea. We need a stamp.
We need
I'll find
a big red stamp.
Yeah. That's going to just go on like the screen, like patriarchy.
Exactly. When in doubt, patriarchy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, Becca, about the boxes, because that's one of those like white noise things that's constantly in the background of our lives, just at even if there is nothing that society can like point at you, they're going to find something to point at you. Oh, the
I
rainbow.
love it.
I forgot. Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't break everything. So.
Yeah. And I think it's that constantly trying to shove us into boxes, whatever those boxes of the normalized good girl, good person, behaved, acceptable. Oh, we got the heart too. It's like it's a constant white noise that keeps us kind of off kilter, off balance, trying to adjust to. And what makes me crazy about the white noise is the expectation that we're going to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what we're seeing in this last year and so, and what we were saying about Stonewall, is you get to a point where it's like there is nothing left to lose, and here I'm putting my body in the way of what's happening. And it's the white noise that escalates. It's that constant drone of death by 1,000 cuts. You get to a point where it's just like, yeah, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
And that's what I see. We're talking about the patriarchy, and I think in this last year, for so many reasons, we're seeing two things happening. We're seeing systems that have been in place collapse, and we're seeing other systems freaking out that those systems are collapsing, and so they're holding on to those systems even harder.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're in this like strange, chaotic soup place where this white noise is a scream, and the boxes are, it's like all the boxes are shaking, all the boxes are rattling. And why I think it's a very exciting place to be, it's a very scary place to be, and I think it's a very dangerous place to be, because there are so many people now that I worry about. And it's is it possible to break these things down without full on revolution? Is it possible to break these things down and to undermine a system without standing up like they did at Stonewall? Can it be done? And we're seeing that all across the globe now, is so many people willing to put themselves out there. And that getting out of the box is what I'm finding fascinating. Mm-hmm. And Fawn, you raised your hand.
Before you say something, Fawn, I want to put up the stamp, colonialism. Because when we talk about systems, and I, not to put words in your mouth, but to me, those systems that are freaking out, that have fallen apart, are the ones, everything's built on colonialism, but are those white male privilege systems, right?
British colonialism.
Right. Where things are have been created and maintained for white men specifically. And suddenly now that, they are seeing that change is happening, right? This inevitable wave is starting to push forward. They're the ones freaking out, right? And the potential loss for them of power is too much, right? So I just wanted to put the colonialism stamp up there. Yes, Fawn, please go ahead.
There's so much. I literally just wrote down a page. I learned from KJ. I took notes, and there's so many things I want to speak about, but I'll just put a few out there. I do think that we can help. I do feel like, yes, we can individually, like little tiny groups, because the more people can get to know one another, it's kind of like when you're driving, you're in your vehicle. Not me, because I don't have road rage unless something crazy really happens. But
Unless somebody makes you have road rage.
well, no, but like I'll just remove myself. Like
Yeah,
I'll just
no,
get
just
off the
kidding.
freeway. Do you know what I mean? Like
I got you. Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't want to play this. But I just find that people misbehave when it's easier to misbehave if you can put everybody lumped up together in a group. It's kind of like driving on the freeway, or it's easier for people to honk the horn and be mean because you know you're surrounded by your bubble. But if you're face to face with someone, there's no way you would behave that way.
Right.
So I think having small groups, that's why I'm like such a I'm trying to have this movement going for the art of friendship, because it's one-on-one. It's getting to know your community. It's getting to know your neighbor. It's getting to know people and having face-to-face interactions and having conversations. And there's no way that when you see someone's humanity that you can not fall in love with them and not understand this is a human being, and love is key, and love is what is the root of everything. And how would you even think that love is only for this group over here and not for this group? You know what I'm so in if we bring it away from the bubble, if we pop the bubble, you know, like the cars, I do think that we can create change. And
I just want to acknowledge that, Rebecca, and it's funny because I actually was literally writing it down and then I looked up and you had typed it. That idea of othering, right? That we create others so that it's not us, it's those people, right? And it makes it easier for us to create systems like, I don't know, slavery, right? Where we can say like, oh, but they're not like us, we're different. So it removes you from the guilt by association, essentially. Yeah.
And then going back to also the it is so crucial to live out loud, because living in a world of such contrast, and when you're on the verge of such great change and advancement, it's always probably the most volatile time. You know, there's so much more contrast because people are so scared that they're going to be proven wrong, and they just want to say my way is not wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the patriarchy. Like they just don't want to give it up. And so it's so crucial to live out loud, because if you don't speak, much like what Rebecca was saying, then they'll speak for you. And you'll be, you know, they'll assume you are this or that. So you need to live, and you need to enjoy your life and celebrate your life. Like all these pride flags were taken down in where I live in Boulder County and all these other counties. And one mayor stepped up today and said, you know what? I'm putting them right back up. And they, by the way, they were replaced by Confederate flags.
Well, I mean, why wouldn't they?
And so she's like, we're going to put our flags back up. And I'm asking all the neighbors, everybody, to put flags up in front of their homes.
Yeah.
And we're not going to let them take away our joy. We're not going to let them take away our light.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, And thank you, Fawn. I mean, yes. I mean, there are so many ways that we, need to start stepping up, like you mentioned. And I want us to talk more about some of those things as well. But I think, that example even is a perfect example of these little microaggressions that happen, right? That, to Jocelyn's point, like, it's this white noise. It's like this one thing after another, like you get worn out, right? It just wears on you so much that it's almost, it becomes overwhelming. Like, I can't worry about this one more thing. I can't be angry about one more thing. I can't be upset about one more thing. And it's like this system of like wearing you down, right? Because you can. Again, if we are talking about like the patriarchy or any of these things, there are systems in place that have better resources, right? More funding, more allyship, more power, that they can go the distance, right? Of wearing you down. A lot of these movements, a lot of these things that come up, when we don't have enough allies that are coming in and stepping in and speaking out, I mean, then yeah, right. They're going to keep pushing to go the distance. So
It's a relay race.
it is, absolutely. It has to be. It has to be. And so I want to ask KJ to chime in if you are in a good space to do so.
I'm home now.
Waiting for you, and then I was going to ask you a question just so it looked awkward. So thank you.
No. And because I love all of you and I'm so comfortable with all of you, I would chew and talk at the same time.
Chew, do all the things. All the things.
Thank you for coming with me. I left work, went through tunnels and hills and everything, and now I'm home eating a snack. So thank you for bearing with me. And I'm still trying to formulate what I wanted to say, because every single one of you have brought up something where I'm just like, yes, but I don't have my trusty notebook with me right now to jot down to go back with. I know, so fun, honey. You may have to help me out. But so I was going to tell Ish that if you are feeling compelled, go for it. But I did want to say that in our very first Magical Cartographers event, in which we were on Clubhouse, and we opened up by saying, let's talk about what othering has been. And I had brought up, to Jocelyn's point today, I had brought up the fact that I grew up consistently, like from earliest memory, having to check a box. And so I always understood that the box checking was not for me, but it was for them, so that they knew how to treat me or not treat me. And even if it was the box next to other, which is the box I always had to literally choose every time, because there was no box for a biracial adopted kid who was Filipina and Puerto Rican. Like, there was no box for that. So they're like, well, we're just going to put you in the uncategorizable other. And so I already from earliest memory understood that there was a system in place that made me feel shame and made me feel less than. And so also adding into that gender and sexual fluidity or orientation, allyship, it always seemed to me that whenever things got a little bit too real or a little bit too scary, or perhaps threatening to overcome the patriarchy or whatever, the system, that's when they would tighten the reins and make more boxes. Because they were like, oh, so not only are you other, but you're a mouthy other. Or you're the kind of other that wears pink, or you're the kind of other that says this as well and tells your friends. And so there were more and more ways to sort of drill down and specify the shame. And so I just wanted to say that there were so many other wonderful points that you ladies brought up, but not surprisingly, because you're brilliant. But I'm gonna stop right now so y'all can talk, and I'm going to eat more watermelon.
Yeah, eat it.
Yeah, eating it.
Ish, let's hear it.
Yeah, I mean, Fawn, thank you for those insights. So many things come up. So I, as a physician, and when I started training, so I consider my start of training medical school, and I can't tell you how naive I was going into was really naive. And to your point, Fawn, about learning about people, being with people, and that is a really beautiful way to really know people. So I had to take care of, for the first time, that to my knowledge, when I was in med school, I had to take care of folks who were imprisoned. And we are always, it's always touted to us as this scary thing. These are bad people. They did bad things, and that's why they're in prison. And what I've come to realize is that people make choices. Some people do not make good choices, and they pay consequences for it. They're still good people. Some people did not make a bad choice, but were part of a system that created the choice for them and put them in prison. So they were good people who continued to be good people. I also experienced really, like, just very face to face in my face when I was taking care. I was a resident at this point, and I was admitted a patient. And I go walking into the ER. I go up to him. He says, "I don't want you taking care." He's like, "I want somebody else. I don't want you taking care of me. I want a white person." And this is in the night. And I looked at him. Training has changed quite a bit over the years. And I looked at him and I said, "Well, I'm it." Like, I'm it. Like, you have me.
Yeah.
And I said, "My job is to take care of you. We'll figure this out in the morning, but right now I'm it." So, like, you just don't have a choice. He was not happy.
Mm-hmm.
Not happy at all. In the morning, when we had this, I told my attendant he doesn't want me. And he was like, no, you're fine. So now, I don't know after that, like, how, like, if I, like, completely changed his opinion of people of color or whatnot. But in that moment, at least I gave him, and he was, for whatever reason, open enough, because there are people who are not, to be able to do that. When I finished training, I did a primary care fellowship. And as part of that, I had to choose what I was going to do for clinic. And at that time, so this was, I don't know, early 2000s, HIV was really changing. The paradigm was changing from being a disease that literally killed you to really becoming a chronic disease. And so I knew, because that's what I was going to be, was primary care physician, that I really needed to have more outpatient experience. Most of what I saw was in clinic, in the hospital. And so I chose to work with another primary care attending who had that was his focus, was HIV care. And I had people who were like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, because I need to know, like, this. I'm like,
right.
I need to understand, how to do this. But some of the best patient population, I just have, like, like the way that care has changed, the way that it's become more of a chronic disease. We've got stuff that actually can help now try to prevent somebody from, getting HIV. But when I went to Detroit, and part of my work there was helping bring primary care into an HIV clinic. And it's just, I remember one time, because I didn't have a whole lot of help, my daughter, who is 17 now, had to come with me. And I had somebody say, why would you bring your daughter? Like, aren't you worried? I'm like, worried about what? What do you think is going to happen to her?
Right.
And it's just those kinds of things, that, like, when people don't know, and they fear, there's so much fear of, like, and I'm not, right now, I don't understand really. And I think people need to sort of, when you asked the question originally, Mel, like, what's the bothersome thing? Like, that's the bothersome thing to me. What are you afraid of?
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen if you open your world to saying, you can love, and I can love you. I don't have to be the same as you.
Right.
Nobody is asking. I don't ask people to be heterosexual. I don't think that any transgender person is asking somebody to be transgender, or, people are just saying, please just be okay with who I am, because we all want to belong, and we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reading this book, and I have to show this, because this is I think I can't pronounce. It's called You Belong. It's by Sabine Selassie, and she talks about this, this separation of people, like the patriarchy, the colonialism. To separate creates power for somebody.
Absolutely.
Right. And when you can take people
Yes.
away from who they are and separate them from people and make it seem like they're the wrong people, then you break these things. When you talk about the 400 years of slavery, right? So they separate. I mean, it was a very clear cut, like, I am taking you from your land. You have no connection. So when I hear people say, well, slavery's done. What's the big deal? 7 generations, read about it in this book. Take 7 generations. So you have trauma, 7 generations later, you're going to feel trauma. Right? What's the big deal is that we're still dealing with it. We still haven't gotten away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what angers me. I'm like, what's the big deal? Is let's treat people with respect. It's the big deal because we don't want to. And people are like, oh, you hear these things all the time. Like, why is it always about race? I'm like, why is it always about whiteness? Right. Like, that's what I've like grown up with. I did not grow up with any kind of, I don't want to say hid, but I never talked about my Indianness. People are like, oh, why do you eat with your hands? Like, so we don't eat with our hands outside in public. We eat with because we don't, I don't know what that's like doing to people, but I mean, I'm just saying. So I'm going on and on and on, but I'm real punchy today, by the way.
No, I think that's, it's so important. I mean, we love punchy here. I mean, that's part of the credo. Like, wasn't that in like the initiations that we had, the blood oaths that we took?
Yes,
wasn't
yes.
that
all of our hazing?
All of our hazing, right? Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly it, right? I mean, again, we can put up all the stamps. But even when you think about, this idea of othering, right? I mean, the concept of race, as we know, it didn't always exist, right? Until some white folks, clearly a white man decided, like, here's the rule. Here's how we're going to distinguish our power from other people's power, right? We're going to make this classification system for human beings and divide them up so that we can try to create this realistic scientific method for determining who's deserving and who isn't, who's intelligent and who isn't, right? And so once we have that type of system, right? Once we say like, okay, well, these are the kind of people who can get married and these are the kind of people who cannot, right? These are the kind of people who can, drink from this water fountain and these are the kind of people who cannot, right? As long as power has always been associated with division and classification, right? Because that's how we know if we're the ones in power, then we can say like, oh, well, I know I feel safe in my power because that person doesn't look like me. So they must not be as deserving. And what happens is, that permeates into everyone's life, right? So it's, as a Black woman, there are certainly certain privileges I don't walk in as like a white male would, but seeing people who look like me, for example, continuously murdered on the news every day, right, by people in another category, right, when it's white men who seem to be killing all of the Black people, and you see that over and over and over for hundreds of years, that's all you see, right? Suddenly now it isn't just a matter of, when we talk about systems, it isn't just a matter of like, okay, well, if there are some, great allies who want to step up and say, yes, but Black people are wonderful, we should love all the Black people. Even Black people at that point are like, there must be something fucking wrong with us because this shit's been going on a long time. Right? There's something that I can't even wrap my mind around, that this has been okay for as long as anyone who ever looked like me has been in this country. Right? So it becomes so much of a bigger issue than just, and I think to your point initially, Jocelyn, your question of like, does there have to be a revolution? Absolutely. Right? I mean, the reality is we've never seen, I mean, I'm not a historical buff, but I don't know of a thing in history, a great change that has happened in history that a complete revolution didn't predicate it, because people have to just get tired of being othered and put into this other category. It takes people just like, fuck, I can't, we just can't do this anymore for there to be change, because folks with the power are never going to willingly give it up, right?
No.
That's just not how societies are created. And again, internally, we often, whether it's, you know, based on race or gender, you know, I mean, we talk a lot about the roles that, you know, folks who identify as women take on, that we're given in our society, that we allow that white noise, that like, it's always kind of like, oh, I don't have the energy to fight the system today. But it takes for us to get to a point where it's like, no, we just are not going to do this anymore. It's going to take all of us to do that. It's going to take this huge swell of people coming together and saying, I know that even though I'm questioning my own capacity, my own abilities, whether I'm right or wrong in this, I've got to stand up and do something differently.
And to that, which I think is really interesting, I'm making notes now. KJ and Fawn, you've inspired me. Ish, come on.
Come on, Ish. It's just taking notes with her wine. Okay.
As the book coach, I'm thinking about stories and what we're seeing that's happening with stories, going back to Downton Abbey, you know, to Sword to Shannara, to Schitt's Creek, to these stories that it's becoming normal. We're seeing these things as normalized. And to what you were saying, Mel, about, you know, we're seeing Black men killed on the TV all the time. We're now also getting, so we were talking about Lucifer. We're starting to see other stories that are showing us that this is not Brighton, or what was it, Bridgerton, that just showed. I mean, some of these are problematic in their own way, but they're showing it's not John Wayne. It's not exactly. It's not John Wayne. It's not, we're breaking out of some of that. I mean, we watch Downton Abbey and we see how Thomas is treated and we think that's not good. That Thomas shouldn't be treated like that.
Yeah.
You know, we watch these shows and you know, it's the stories were started, and, you know, TikTok, I can get on TikTok and I'm watching all kinds of different people that are doing different things. And so we're seeing in technology and story a breakdown as well of that power structure. I mean, I think technology is, especially in this last year, is doing really quickly what, you know, we couldn't do 50 years ago. We're seeing the images, we're seeing the things in ways, you know, I never would have seen up here in the corner of Washington State, that are happening in Minneapolis, that are happening in Florida. So I think technology is really starting to change some of that story. And I think that to the point of revolution, I think that's happening faster. I think it's coming faster.
Yeah. And don't you think though, I mean, yes, I agree with you. But I feel like technology is it's not so much that it's, you know, delivering this, you know, these diverse voices and images, it's forcing it, right? It's forcing spaces, for people to be allowed to be seen,
right?
Which I'm certainly not against, but still goes to that notion of like, no one is, you know, handing anyone, you know, Mark Zuckerberg isn't like, hey, let's make it easier for Black people to, you know, get on social media or whatnot, right? It still is a matter of people being resourceful enough to find a way to kick in the door,
to claim the space.
Yeah.
And we see this with China trying to do their great firewall and keeping, you know, their population from connecting to the internet. They connect through VPN.
Right.
I mean, you can't stop the flow of information. I mean, people are going to force that space. So it's going to be interesting to see as that space gets forced, I think it's moving us. I think technology is forcing us to move. We have people forcing technology and technology forcing us to move faster. And I think back to that patriarchy, that old white man, and we're seeing it, patriarchy, British colonialism, I mean, we're seeing this.
Right.
That I think is what happens with the fear of technology too. They don't want us all being connected. They don't want us to know what each other's stories are, to see each other,
Right.
to connect, like Fawn was saying. When we connect in this way, we know each other.
Yeah.
And they don't want that.
Yeah. We're not othering each other as much.
No.
Dawn, I think
Absolutely.
you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Ish, did you say Fawn?
Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead, Fawn. Yeah.
Oh my God, I have so much to say.
And then I'm gonna force KJ, notebook or not, to
Notebook
give
or
us
not.
some more insights. And I want to say, KJ, you look extra beautiful today. Like once you moved, and I'm like, okay, girl, I see what's happening. I mean, you
Oh.
always look amazing, but I was like, okay,
Well-
showing up out loud.
Well, I think I have a theory behind it, but thank you very much.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Go ahead,
You're
Fawn.
gonna share your theory. I have so much to. I blanked out. Now I want to hear what Cage's theory is. The theory behind it.
Okay, just real quickly, because I know you all will appreciate it. I applied and it's been officially accepted for me to move on to my new job.
Yay!
So yeah,
Yes.
so that was today. So maybe that's why I'm like,
Right, it's the glow. Oh, I love it.
love getting the fuck out of here.
Yes.
My first step in fuck the patriarchy.
That's
So,
right. Oh, I
yeah,
love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yay.
yeah.
Good. Fawn, yes, please share.
Okay, I'm gonna seem like I'm all over the place, and I'm not sure if it's gonna come out properly. Please help me out.
Let's hear it.
So months ago, I'm a homeschooler, so we learned together because I wasn't taught shit in school. Like I had to learn everything by myself, and I'm homeschooling my girls. Like I'm an original homeschooler. I'm not a pandemic homeschooler, and it's because of the crappy education that I had in
Yeah.
one of the best school districts in California. It was some BS, but
Mhm.
so we were really delving in deep into Athens and Sparta, and really getting into their form of slavery. And I understood that our government, especially in the United States, has totally copied almost word for word everything
Mhm.
from Athens.
Yeah.
And then so I was looking at Athens and I was looking at Sparta. Athens had slavery, Sparta had slavery, and they were different. Women had no rights in Athens, but Sparta had equal rights for women. But what I think it was Sparta, they would take the strongest of the slaves and they would a few times a year kill them in public to bring fear to
Mhm.
people. Like
Yeah.
this is what happens. This is what we're going to do to the strongest one of you.
Mhm. Yeah.
So there was that. I just wanted to comment on that. And I want to go back to revolution.
Mhm.
And I feel like every 5,000 years, there's been major revolt to the extent where we've killed everything on the planet and we've had to start all over again. I feel, and I know the way I feel about all of us, we are extreme warriors, not to fight in that same old way. So when we're talking about revolution, I hear the term empty jacket come up, which my husband taught me. We met in a martial arts school. We met in Aikido, which is the school, the whole concept of our school was you're here to protect your attacker. So
Mm.
you're not there to hurt their body or their ego. And as they're attacking you, you're parenting them.
Mm.
And it actually feels good for them as you're spinning them all around and embracing them. But don't get it twisted, because once they are on the floor, they are all twisted up and about to have every limb, every joint completely broken.
Mm.
But but they feel good like within that
There's a lesson
circuit,
through that process.
that like they actually they come back to harmony. That is your that's your way. So the
I
whole
love that.
empty jacket, I feel the revolution I'm here for is they're not going to see what hit. I'm not even going to pay attention to them. I'm trying to just bring all of our friends together where we don't even listen to their rules. We suddenly are having society run this way. We're not even going to talk to you. Like empty jacket. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there's no point to fight. I don't want to fight anymore. I don't want to have discussions anymore. We're just going to do it this way. Like when you're a mom and you have a tantrum crazy toddler on your hands, there's no, you can't, you just go about your business and do what you need to do quietly and gently, but very powerfully. You know what I mean? Don't entertain the thought. Don't even entertain the forces against you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. I tell people all the time, like, you can't argue with crazy. Right. I mean, there's just, and I think that is a fine line. You know, it's difficult. I mean, obviously it's not only situational, but, you know, individually making that determination, right? Because people are going to knock you either way, right? If you're on the side of, I'm going to just like ignore this terrible shit that's happening, and do my own thing over here that's completely opposite of that, right? And try to move the needle by just focusing all of my energy in this new direction. There are going to be people who say like, okay, but we can't, like, you can't ignore what's happening, right? That's the privilege that you're just ignoring this because it's not directly affecting you. The flip to that, of course, is you can get stuck in this quagmire of continuously just getting knocked down and knocked down and knocked down. And what we see living over and over and over again, even through protests and, you know, like, oh, great, you're protesting again. Okay, well, we're just going to use different weapons now to knock you down, right? Or when you see, you know, what happens in places like Russia, right? We're just going to poison you. So, okay, right? So that's kind of, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And it takes both sides of that and everything in between to really move the needle forward. When we're talking about, again, you know, living out loud, it isn't my way or your way, right? It's the way that you're able to live out loud. If you're living out loud, you know, involves, I'm not getting stuck in this terrible shit that is weighing me down. I'm just focusing my energy over here and in advocacy and talking about the future. Then that's great. You also can't let someone tell you or dictate to you and say, you know, to Becca's point in the beginning, like, put you in this box of how you're supposed to behave, what it means for you to live out loud. No, you can't, right? And I can't sit here and say like, oh, well, that's just wrong. Fawn, you can't do that because you got to do it this way. Bullshit. And I would want you to call bullshit on it, right? And I think, you know, that's a piece of this, part of this conversation, again, goes back to understanding at the core, right? Before you can really say like, I'm living out loud, in a consistent, meaningful way, like, you got to decide what that even means, right? And it's got to be your decision. It can't be, well, my sister does this and my mom taught me this thing and my friends think that I should do this, right? And I mean, it's an ever evolving process, but I just think it's so important to start from a place of, what do I think is important, right? What feels authentic to me? And how am I going to express that? You know?
And
Organizing.
to
Organizing with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
To live out loud together.
Different. I think that I really do think there are different forms of revolution. So,
absolutely. I agree.
Social media revolution. I mean, you know, literally people's careers can get taken down. Like, I think we've seen the power of social media, right? That, so even though a person of one color may have created or started or been at the forefront of this social media platform, he can't control all of it, right? Like that power has the, you know, is in the hands of many. There's economic revolution, but I will also say that the younger generation is very different than we were, and a lot of them are not going to stand for stuff that we tolerated, quite frankly. I know my oldest is like, this is like, you know, and it's refreshing because they're changing the way that we look at work. They're changing the way that we look at a lot of things, and they are not tolerating. But also, to your point, there is we're still seeing it. It's like, how far are we going to push a group of people before the body has to come, a group of bodies have to come in front and say, no more.
Right.
And you know, and I think our conversations are hopefully to use other forms of revolution before that. But I don't know, you know, back to Jocelyn's question, I don't know where all of this is headed, because I've certainly seen violence in my lifetime that I didn't think that I was going to really see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, you know, I mean, I don't care what anybody says, January 6th should never have happened the way that it happens. Disgusting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, you know,
And I mean, that's a great example, right, of folks in power struggling right now, right, with shit. What do we do about this, right? Do we concede that this was too much and maybe lose some of our power from this base of people who want just white domination, or not? Or do we pretend, you know, like, do we pretend that we didn't even see it and try to move forward, which is, in my opinion, what Republicans are trying to do? Or do we stand up and say, like, what the fuck? This can't stand. This can't be okay, and try to do something about it, right? I mean, yes, and all the gray in between, right? Because it isn't one extreme or the other. Yeah. KJ, I'm back to you, because I just like looking at you.
Oh, honey.
So come on, let's hear it. I feel like
Okay.
I need more of your voice in this conversation.
I've honestly been just soaking you all in.
Yeah.
You all have been bringing up such fantastic points, and it really was discombobulating for me to not have my notebook nearby.
Oh, yeah.
But I grabbed my notebook because I
Yay.
wanted to come back to things that you all had said and have some sort of sense out of it. So there were a couple things, and I was like, oh, this kind of took a dark turn. Didn't realize I was gonna go there.
I mean, you can't have the light without the dark, right?
This is very true. This is very true. So I think I wanted to make 2 points that Ish just had begun to highlight a minute ago, which was regarding the power of the media and the tide that has changed because people have been empowered with their own voice, with their own social media, with their own ways that they can communicate when they're feeling strongly about something, or if they've become an advocate for something, or that we actually can take in our own hands a way of saying, I want to bring more attention to this. It doesn't matter really what the follower count is at this point. If there are 3 people that agree with me, there's 6 of us on this call right now. If 6 of us have this idea, that can be a revolution.
Yeah.
So into the point that Fawn and everyone has been making about what a revolution can look like, it doesn't have to be sticks and pitchforks and massive crowds. It can be an agreement and thoughts, and somebody saying to a friend, hey, I have this idea, or this has been my experience. Has that been your experience? The uncovering of an experience, and then sharing it and realizing that you're not alone in it.
Yeah.
So how powerful is it? Like we talked about, how powerful is it that when groups get together, and how it is. So this is where I was like, oh, this kind of got dark. not only on January 6th, where it was illustrated, but you know how I don't say his name, but number 45, the orange asshole, the way that he consistently through his administration vilified, separated, and isolated journalists in the media because he needed something to vilify and put a face to, but at the same time, it was him exercising the same things that Hitler used. It was the same thing, it's the same tactics that domestic violence or violent perpetrators and abusers use. Absolutely. If they can separate and vilify someone, make them feel like that they're alone or alone and or bad, then that is the abuser taking power. And was it you, Jocelyn, who had mentioned this, or we all had spoken to the fact, and Fawn, how if we witness what happens when someone in power or when someone has a voice gets abused or gets cut down publicly, that is such a powerful message. We may not, like we said, we may not have to say anything, or it may not have to be like crowds of people with pitchforks and like this wave of people. But if you can cut down one person in public that we had all championed, or that was a voice for something or an advocate for something, that is such a powerful way to try and squash and quash what we're trying to do. So we are being revolutionary, my ladies, by just getting together, and we can make change when we continue to uncover and uncondition. Like, I think that the entire point of us, one of the points of us getting together as magical cartographers, was to untell and chart new territories. And I see, yes, my friend Fawn, definitely, I would love to hear more about your thought on shame. But one more thing before I forget. Again, I'm all over the place, but I wrote down journalists again with the way that the orange asshole separated and vilified journalism, and how it was very easy to be like, oh, it's the media, it's these reporters, it's these people like recording what's happening and getting it out to the masses. And I had been interviewed by somebody who was a journalist, or she's just finishing up journalism school, and she's in Canada. And she wanted to talk to me about how unsafe journalists feel to do their job, and how they have PTSD and trauma, and they're terrified to do their work in telling stories and sharing stories. And so I thought that was a really interesting angle, and I was just like, this must be huge that no one's really talking about. But I just wanted to share that someone had reached out to me and asked if we could talk a little bit about how traumatized and how unsafe journalists feel, and reporters feel, because they're just trying to get the word out there, right? Whether it's truth or not, or but when there's dissent, or whenever there might be an opposing point or perspective. So I love all of
that. Fawn, I want you to go, and then I'm going just to give you a little warning. I want us to wrap up with something that you really want to kind of acknowledge and be proud of how you have lived out loud, or are living out loud. That's how we're going to end it. I'm just letting you know right now, right after Fawn. Go ahead, Fawn.
Well, before I forget, so I am proud of the fact that I noticed this about myself as a child. So I'm proud of that, and I'll tell you what it is. From the very beginning, I realized that fear is a weapon, and if fear doesn't work as their weapons against you from these racists, it's shame. And shame is so sneaky, because when I was a little kid, and all kinds of profanity, insults, all kinds of violence was thrown at my family, and I was just a little kid in the car experiencing all this being thrown at my family, it took a while, but I realized that although I knew it was wrong, although I knew what the hurling of violence and words with violence, all of that, I knew that was wrong. Even though I knew it was wrong, I was feeling shame for being not white. Like they made me feel, I allowed for them to penetrate me in such a way where I started to feel so ashamed of who I was. And who I was someone that was colorful. And
I just want to say you didn't allow it. You were a kid. It was all that you knew.
but kids are so powerful. Like
Oh, absolutely.
babies come in, they're the ambassadors of
Yes.
love.
But
They
that
know
was not
what's
your
up.
choice. That was not your choice. That was what was given to you. So I just want to acknowledge that for you, that you did not make that choice as a child to carry that shame and the weight of that.
I think
That's not on you. But acknowledging it now, and yes, as a kid, learning like, wait, I don't have to be this way. That's all you, baby.
but I just realized that's what gets you. That's what makes you submit to that patriarchy. That's what makes you submit to that what do you call it? That racism, that thing, that structure, that hate. You're submitting to it. It's like you're injected with this thing that will kill you. They try to kill you in so many ways, but one of the most lethal ways is the shame that gets injected in you. The shame of being you, your culture, your color, everything.
Yeah.
And it's quiet and it's the most lethal.
Absolutely. It is. It is. And that's why we are going to focus on what makes us fucking amazing right now. And so I want you to immediately right now, Fawn, flip that switch and tell me what makes you fucking amazing. What's one thing, just one thing? I'm sure there's a plethora of things you could pull out, but I want to hear one thing that you are so proud of as far as you living your life out loud.
I am proud of the fact that I don't give a shit.
Yes.
I will speak whatever I want to speak.
Yes.
And I have a whole podcast with just me speaking.
I love it. That's amazing, right? I mean, that is the epitome of living out loud, of speaking out, right? Having a whole podcast. I mean, that's it. And that's incredible. And it's amazing that regardless of the burden of the world that was placed on you as a kid, that you've found your voice and are using it. That's so freaking amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much
to keep
for that.
singing.
Keep singing. Yes. Yes. Who's next? Who wants to talk about the pride? What are you most proud of? I'm looking at Ish. Go, Ish.
You know, I'm just really most proud of the fact that I'm able to really have these conversations with you guys and bring that to the forefront. I mean, I'm really proud of the fact that I'm trying to use social media in a really positive way. I do go down the rabbit hole sometimes, but it's not a bad thing. You know, we vilify, social media is vilified, right? But each and every one of you, I have never, well, we will be, but I have not met you in person. And that is because
coming
of social media,
soon.
you know?
Yeah.
So, and you know, Fawn, I mean, I'm really happy that I didn't take the stance that, oh my God, I'm not going to be on social media. Like that's like, you know, beneath me or whatever it is. And there's a lot from a healthcare perspective. There is also like, don't put yourself out there, to be careful what you say, all of this kind of stuff, you know, and I certainly think we have to have wise speech. Right. But I'm just, yeah, I'm really glad that social media in my life is a very positive thing, and that I'm trained to use it for a very positive thing. And that the other thing too, yes, and the other thing too, Mel, is yes. I mean, the other thing is that I look things up because I don't know everything. And I was like, I cannot walk on this call and not understand where I came from. And I joke, I know you wouldn't have kicked my ass, but
No.
the thing for me is I love and respect you so much that like if I'm your friend, that's what I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I mean, I'm going to say this for everyone as you go through and tell me what you're so proud of, but I mean, that's amazing. Not just, I mean, that acknowledgement that you have, that, you know, you recognize, if I'm going to live out loud, if I'm going to truly call myself a friend, an ally, an advocate, I can't sit behind my, you know, medical degree and just say, oh, I should probably stay quiet, right? I'm not going to just stand back and, you know, be like, oh, I love gay people, they're awesome, without knowing anything about something that you feel is really important to know, right? And doing that and making a point of like not letting us start the day without having that conversation and acknowledging that. I mean, that's, again, fucking amazing. That's going to be another step. Fucking amazing. And it'll have sparkles on it. So I've started a list here of things that I need to make stamps for. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. All right. Which one of you? Jocelyn, you look like you're ready.
I'm ready. I'm always ready. I've always got an opinion or something to say about something, right?
Yes.
I am really fucking proud to be here and to be in the presence of all of you amazing women. I can't even tell you how important it is to me and how I have craved and longed for these conversations and these friendships and a place to just be, and to a safe space, and you know how we've gotten here and through the technology. I am so proud to be a part of your story. I mean, I am honored and so grateful to be here and to be able to participate in your stories and to learn your stories and to have you be a part of my story and learn my stories. And we're going to do amazing things. I don't doubt it at all.
Yeah. You're trying to break the seal here. I haven't cried on one of these calls yet. Don't do it with a freaking rainbow over my head, Jocelyn.
You have to baptize
Don't
it.
do it. Yeah, I mean, I think that just allowing yourself, you know, I mean, Fawn mentioned this, you know, earlier too, like allowing yourself to be a voice in community is a big choice, right? It's not easy. It's not easy to live in a world where strong women are supposed to do it on your own and have your own whatever. It's not easy to break free from that mold and say, whatever, there's some amazing people over here who want to talk about some shit. And I want to talk about that stuff too, right? And doing that, not everyone is going to do that. Not everyone is going to open up their arms the way that you have and just say like, I'm in for whatever's happening here. I mean, Jocelyn was the first one that I recruited in this manifestation. And I mean, I was just like, I feel like we need to burn some shit down. And she's like, okay, I don't know what that means, but yeah.
Yeah,
right?
I'll bring the gasoline.
Now, obviously, you know, Ish and KJ were down too. And also we're like super easy about it. Like, yeah, whatever that is. But it's not always easy, right? It's not something all of us have been able to do necessarily in the past. And so many people can't. And so it's so important. And I'm so thankful that you have decided that, you know what, I've got an opinion that other people need to hear too. So Thank you. Thank you so much for that. All right, KJ, that leaves you. Let's hear it, girl.
Well, cry, KJ.
Don't you do it.
To cry.
Don't you do it. KJ's going to talk about something completely unrelated.
She's close.
I'm like, tell me about your childhood. I'll use the voice. I will do it. Right. Actually, you've already opened up, and I'm just nodding and saying yes, yes, yes. to everything you've said, especially all of you ladies, especially the showing up part. It has not been easy. The way that the things have been sort of presented to us as women, and especially women today, where the way you're supposed to exist is to actually be pitted against each other and tear each other down. But the fact is that we all showed up anyway, maybe not knowing all the facts, but saying, yes, I'm going to follow my intuition. And so that's why I wanted to say that I'm super duper fucking proud that I show up anyway, whether it's because whether or not, and I'm scared, or and I don't know what's going on, but I'm just following my intuition. And look where it's led me. Every person that is on this call, we have a magical connection because we said yes, or we at least accepted the invitation. And so, and then to Ish's point, the fact that we're willing to learn, I'm so proud that even if I don't understand something, or if it might even seem overwhelming to me, I'll still show up, and then I'll ask questions, and I'll just say, I don't know, but I'd love to find out, or I'd love to do some research to figure out where we can go from here. And I invite the connection, and I invite the conversations. And so I'm just so proud, so pleased and honored to be a part of the conversation. And Mel, for the invitation. I'll always remember the way that you reached out and just said, so I think we're supposed to do something. We're supposed to burn some shit down. And I was like, cool.
Literally, that was the conversation.
That really was the conversation. You're like, I'm drawn into you. I think we can do some amazing shit. And I was like, me too. Yeah. And so like Jocelyn brought the gasoline, I brought a match. We were all just like, let's go. Let's see. So thank you. There's just such gratitude here for you beautiful women. So
you guys weren't supposed to pick us as your thing to be proud of. You were supposed to pick another thing.
What are you talking about? This is
don't you put rules on this?
I mean, here's the thing.
Don't you box us?
That's right.
I know. What's the
we don't do boxes.
Don't be revolutioning me.
You don't know what you get. We literally walk in here. We don't really have an idea what we're talking about.
We have an idea.
It
may be a real
we don't do show notes or anything. No, we don't have show notes. You had no idea I was walking in here and going to be like, history lesson, Mel.
That's right. Listen, these ladies do keep me on my toes. Absolutely. No, I mean, I joke.
But I was like, she's going to know this. I mean, I'm not going to like.
She didn't care if I didn't. So it's okay. No, I mean, KJ, you're, yes to all of those things. And really that vulnerability of allowing yourself to say, you know what, let me ask the questions, right? I don't need to know everything. But if it's important to me, I'm going to put myself out there to do the learning. And again, I mean, that's not something that everybody does, right? I mean, how great would the world be if that were the case, but it ain't, right? And so, and I love that about all of you, that you are, both through who you are as individuals and time and experience, right, have led you to this place where, we all kind of found ourselves in this like cloud of like, shit's got to be different. I don't know what that is, but I feel this energy of these other folks, and we got to just make some magic happen. And that's really how this all played out and how it continues to grow. And I think, to Fawn's point as well, like this idea of community, of there being just more community, and my new phrase of conspiracy. Wow. Okay, Mercury. Conspiracy. Yes, right. I knew there was a real word in there.
Accomplices.
Yes.
Is really, I mean, kind of the like, ooh, but like whatever. Yes, ooh, we're being badasses together, right? And for me, I mean, if anyone read my post today, it was about you ladies. So I kind of set this up for me to also just talk about y'all. But it really is I have spent I've always worked with other people, but not chosen people, right? And I think even in my family, like I haven't had the best family growing up. So my chosen family was always like my family. There isn't a distinction. There isn't, I'm going to do more for you than for you because we're a family. And so for all of you as my chosen family to continue to come along on this journey, push me forward in this journey, you know, our conversations aren't always about being in agreement. It's about, what do you think about this? Right? How do you feel about that? I just learned about this thing, right? And bringing these conversations forward, regardless of how difficult they may be, regardless of, I don't know a lot about this, but I want to learn more. Let's talk about it, right? Having people around me that do that and encourage me to do more of that and to grow into that. As I said on my post, like when people get you and you don't even get you, like that's freaking amazing. And that's who you ladies are for me. And I'm so thankful for that. And again, I jokingly say thanks for being easy, ladies, because that's how I like my ladies. But don't tell my wife. But but really, I mean, that's really what this is all about. And, you know, and I just love the fact that we are living out loud together, you know, and we're going to keep doing that. And we're going to keep doing that in 2 weeks from now when we have part 2 of this conversation, where we are showing our pride part 2. And I'm calling this one Authenticity as the New Normal. Right? Or I could have said as the new black, but that's kind of played out. But really moving this conversation in 2 weeks, we're going to be moving this conversation into a little bit more of an action, right? We can continue always talking about the patriarchy. But I think this month, definitely, we want to start moving more into focusing on how we can start making some of those changes, how we can really encourage each other and other folks to continue to show up and live out loud. And so we'll be back in 2 weeks, June 22nd. Hopefully, technology will be working because I think that's the day after Mercury goes out of retrograde. So we should be safe.
Pluto will still be in retrograde.
Well,
What
yes,
will? Huh?
Pluto, you know, she's
in
talking about
retrograde until
Pluto.
the fall.
She's a Scorpio, so she gets a pass
My
on
girl.
Pluto. The other
Maybe
Scorpio.
that's why I am the way I am right now.
But yeah, so we will be back in 2 weeks and we'll see y'all then. I'm going to stop recording now.
Mwah.